Hi everyone, my name is Tina Holland, and in this webinar today we're going to look at the 21st century dimension of use of technology for learning. But before we begin, I really encourage you to go ahead and just pause this webinar right here just for a second and go to our WCSD21.com website. And on that website is, if you go on the home right here, there's the 21st century competencies, and if you click on that, or if you go over here right here where it says elevator guides, go ahead and click on use of technology for learning, and then it will open up, and then you can go ahead and follow along using this guide. The guide is basically the transcript of this webinar in addition to some concrete examples of learning activities for each of the competencies. So do pause the webinar here and go ahead and get this guide up and then come on back to the webinar. So today we're going to look at the 21st century dimension of use of technology for learning, like I said, but we're going to look at it more in depth. And we're going to go ahead and explore some examples of what each of the competencies looks like in the classroom, at the classroom level. And you could see right here in our elevator guide, right here, this is the use of technology for learning. And I personally think that out of all the 21st century learning dimensions, use of technology for learning creates the most confusion, and it does this in several ways. When I say 21st century learning, what is the first thing that comes to pretty much everyone's mind? As soon as you hear the word 21st century learning or the phrase, probably for everybody, the first thing that comes into mind is technology. And if you actually look at our guide here, go ahead. We have collaboration, knowledge construction, real-world problem solving and innovation, use of technology for learning, self-regulation, and skill communication. And there are 6 dimensions up there. So really, use of technology for learning is how much of 21st century competencies? It's only 1/6. 21st century learning is not all about technology, and I mean, don't get me wrong, technology is certainly important, but technology is a tool. And it's a tool that supports the other dimensions, and it's not the end-all or be-all of 21st century learning. And I think a lot of educators kind of get the feeling that just using the technology is how it should be done, rather than seeing it as a tool to support 21st century competencies. Just using the technology is good enough. And you can also see too, I think a lot of misconceptions are that educators feel that you can't do these other dimensions of collaboration and knowledge construction and so forth unless you have technology, and that's not the truth either. So we're going to go ahead and dive deeper into this dimension. So what I want you to do here is I'll have the link up, and I want you to pause the video, and I want you to watch the video for a good example of why students should use technology for learning, and then go ahead and come on back. Okay, so that's just a funny example, and I'm sure probably a lot of you recognize the movie, of why we want to use technology for learning. We live in a highly connected world, and it's really, I mean, it's with unprecedented access to digital information and experiences. So many of us remember a time when obtaining a particular piece of information meant physically visiting some repository of knowledge, such as a library, or an expert in the field, or a museum, or even going and seeing your mom. But with increasing access to technology and the connections that it enables, information is no longer centralized in this way. And really, since 2010, when the first iPad was released, in 2011, when internet-connected smartphones became the most popular cell phones, connectivity has become ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Almost any piece of human knowledge is accessible from anywhere at any time. So, thinking about the implications for college and careers, the vast knowledge that's available at our fingertips, along with the ability to connect instantly across the globe, is changing virtually every workplace, and along with that is changing the way that we learn. The ability to thrive amid these changes, really, and especially to use technology strategically, capably, and creatively, is a critical 21st century competency in a global knowledge-based economy. So, what is the use of technology for learning? In the guide that hopefully you're looking at, the term technology, and there's a reference called ICT, which means information and communication technology. It really refers to any available digital tool, including hardware, such as tablets, notebooks, desktop computers, smartphones, e-readers, active boards, digital cameras, and the list goes on. And then also software, such as video creation programs, internet browsers, multimedia development tools, word processors, and productivity software, and so forth. And technology also includes online tools and apps, such as social media or collaborative editing platforms like SharePoint and Google Apps, or blogging platforms, digital storage, and so forth. So technology of some kind or another is available in almost every classroom. The present reality, however, is that this technology is usually controlled by the teacher and not by the students. And it is most commonly used for presenting and consuming information, not as a tool for constructing knowledge or designing knowledge-based products. And additionally, when technology is used in instruction, it is most frequently something students learn about rather than with or through. In other words, in traditional instruction, technology is viewed as content rather than a learning tool. And to realize the potential of technology in the classroom, it is important to distinguish between learning to use technology and using technology for learning. Learning to use technology does not equal using technology for learning. Learning to type, learning how to use a particular computer program, and learning how to perform a detailed Google search are not uses of technology for learning. On the other hand, students using a computer simulation to explore how stars are formed or creating a video public service announcement are using technology for learning. So how do we plan instruction that includes opportunities for students to use technology for learning? Technology is a powerful tool for promoting and supporting all 21st century competencies within the 6 dimensions presented in this guide. For instance, students can collaborate using technologies such as Skype, Edmodo, or Twitter in ways that were not possible before. And students can communicate skillfully using different modes and to audiences to which they never before had access. Without question, the most important thing to remember about using technology for learning is that the technology itself must be in the hands of students. It can be instructive to think of classroom technology as we would think of pencils. The pencil is a tool for learning, but not when the teacher has the only one. The pencil is a tool to learn with, not about. And pencils are more engaging for students who are given choices about their use, such as color selection, what to draw, and so forth. Other considerations when using technology for learning include the following. Learning to use technology is not a goal of the use of technology for learning. This is not to say that students should never receive direct instruction in specific technologies. For example, learning to program or learning to use specific industry standard design software is very important in many fields. Whenever possible, consider allowing students to select the technologies they use to complete tasks. When learning activities are planned accordingly, students may meet the same learning goals through the creation of a wide variety of technology products. Another thing to consider is using technology in the classroom should not be more work for the teacher. Many technologies may require an initial investment of time, such as setting up a class blog, for instance, but the most valuable contribution student-centered technology makes in the classroom is to empower students to work as hard as or harder than the teacher. The return on investment is exponential. Another consideration is allow students a wide selection of technologies, but teachers should avoid trying to know everything about every technology. Students who have a reason for using a particular technology will more often than not find a way to learn to use it. This addresses the NVAC's concept of students selecting the most appropriate technology tool for what they want to accomplish. And then finally, consider allow students to help each other when they get stuck with a particular technology related task. Almost always, other students will know how to make it work or know how to figure it out. So let's go ahead and take a look at the elevator of competencies for use of technology for learning. Now, the use of technology for learning competencies focuses mostly on the use of technology related to knowledge construction and real-world problem solving and innovation. However, it is clear that technology is highly applicable to collaboration, skilled communication, and self-regulation. Learning activities that reach higher levels of the use of technology for learning elevator will certainly also require the use of these 21st century competencies as well. So when students are using technology during a learning activity, they are using the technology directly to complete all or part of the activity. Students must have control of the technology themselves. If teachers are using technology to present materials to students, by the way, this does not count as student use. And again, things to consider. It is not suggested that teachers shouldn't present material to students using technology. Many teacher uses of technology are highly beneficial to students and are encouraged. However, when the teacher is controlling the technology, there is no opportunity for students to develop the competencies in this dimension. Teachers should therefore consider a range of activities that include both teacher and student-centered technology. Providing opportunities for students to use technology counts as the use of technology for learning. Because technology is not essential for a learning activity, students who choose not to use technology, even though it is available to them, are exhibiting the ability to select when technology will serve their purposes in completing a task. This is an important skill in technology-rich world. And so we take a look at our elevator guide and we can see that our ground level here is students use technology during the activity. And an example of this, students use technology directly to complete all or part of a learning activity. And an example of this would be using software such as Word or using Excel. So our next competency for use of technology for learning, which would be the second level, is where technology supports students' knowledge construction. And a key way technology supports learning is through the construction of knowledge. Rather than just the reproduction of knowledge, knowledge construction is another of the 6 dimensions of 21st century learning. And you can go ahead and take a look at the knowledge construction elevator guide for a more in-depth look. But we define knowledge construction as follows. Technology supports knowledge construction when students use technology directly for the knowledge construction portion of a learning activity. For instance, let's say by using a computer to analyze scientific information, or students use technology to complete a step of an activity, then use the information from that step in the knowledge construction portion of the learning activity. For instance, students might conduct an online survey, then analyze the responses offline. Key considerations are that learning to use technology does not qualify as knowledge construction. The knowledge construction supported by technology must be about the standards aligned learning goals of the activity. For example, students may learn to use PowerPoint as they create a presentation, but it is essential that the use of PowerPoint helped students construct knowledge through interpretation, analysis, synthesis, or evaluation. Students who evaluate the credibility of internet resources in the context of learning goals are constructing knowledge supported by technology. And just a quick reminder, and that is knowledge construction requires students to generate ideas that involve interpretation, analysis, synthesis, or evaluation. And so if we take a look at the sample here, and that is, for example, this is the second level of use of technology for learning. So we have our software here, and we're using Excel, and we're bumping it up a little bit, and that is we're combining using Excel with another tool, which is, in fact, this is from the PhET lab, P-H-E-T, PhET lab, and this is a simulation of the boiling point of water. And in this simulation, students can control several variables. They can control pressure and heat and how many molecules they put in the container and do all kinds of things. And so this combination with the software here would be example of students constructing knowledge, and would be an example of our second level here. Our third level is where technology is required for constructing knowledge, when the technology allows students to undertake knowledge construction activities that would be impossible or impractical without the use of technology. For instance, students might communicate over a 2-week period with students in another country to research the impact of a recent drought on their community. In this case, email or Skype enables students to construct knowledge that the time involved in mailing physical letters would make impractical. So the use of technology is required for constructing knowledge. And things to consider, and that is if students can achieve an activity's learning goals without using technology, technology is not required for constructing knowledge. And educators should avoid establishing artificial requirements that students use technology when other means are available for constructing knowledge. In the many cases where knowledge can be constructed without technology, students might be given the option to use technology. And so we're going to go ahead and take a look at our sample here. And you could see we're moving up our elevator to the third level. Technology is required for constructing this knowledge. And so here we have Excel, and here we have the simulation of boiling point. And let's say we have groups collaborating on this information and sharing that data. In fact, there's actually a project online that's very similar to this, and that is, it's called the International Boiling Point. And students, literally, it's from around the world, and it's been going on for years, probably for the last 15 years. But students around the world, they will record different variables such as the atmospheric pressure, what their elevation is, and things like that. And then they literally boil water. And they do this for several days, and they compile the data, and then they post it so in one central location, and then other students from around the world also post the data. And so there's all this data about boiling point from all these different areas around the world. In fact, people have even gone up to Mount Everest for this. And so this would be an example of the third level where technology is required for constructing this knowledge. If it wasn't for having a central point or being able to collaborate with other students for this data, with something like writing letters back and forth would not be practical. And so, again, this third level technology is required for knowledge construction. This would be an example of this third level of the competency, of this competency here. Okay, and then the fourth level of using technology for learning is designers of a tech product. And students are designers of a technology product when they use technology to create products that others can use. So this product lasts beyond the learning activity, and it can be used or enjoyed by an outside audience. The 21st century competency relates strongly to the dimension of real-world problem solving and innovation, because a product that is useful to others requires innovation in addressing some real-world issues. And for more information on real-world problem solving and innovation, you can see our elevator guide for more details. But things to consider, key considerations, is when creating technology products that are useful to others, students must consider an authentic audience, for example, the likely listeners to a podcast. Ideally, although this is often difficult, the learning activity would include opportunities for students to foster actual use of their product among the intended audience. And in order to qualify as students being designers of a technology product, the activity must also meet the requirements of technology being required for constructing knowledge. And an example of this would be, let's say that students are gathering a whole bunch of data on force and cars driving. Maybe they're studying Newton's first law of motion, and they do a study and gather various data on people getting in accidents and why they should wear seatbelts. And so they analyze this data, compile this data, put it together, maybe even collaborate with another class, and then ultimately perhaps they make a public service announcement using what the information they learned on why people should wear seatbelts. And so this would be an example of students being designers of a technology product. So some final thoughts on use of technology for learning, and that is that technology is now ubiquitous in our society. Using technology in day-to-day activities is no longer optional for most of us, and as a powerful tool for constructing knowledge and innovating to solve real-world problems, technology deserves a prominent place in K-12 instructional settings. Helping students to thrive in our technology-rich society requires us as educators to model effective uses of technology, relinquish control of this important tool to our students, and recognize that, whether we like it or not, we are living in a world in which technology enables everyone to be connected to the people and resources which are meaningful to them. And so that concludes our webinar on use of technology for learning.